everybody. I'm Allison M. Dickson. I'm the author of such tales as the horror thriller Strings, which released last year. But today I'm looking to take you on a completely different journey, one that involves sentient weeds, harrowing adventure, thrilling discovery, post apocalyptic landscapes. And that book is none other than, ta da, The Last Supper. Which is today is the release date for it. I am very excited. It is currently available on paperback, which you can get at Amazon. You can also get it for your Kindle screens, and you can get it for iPad at iBooks, Kobo. You can get it at Barnes & Noble for your Nook. And if you want to learn more about this story, I've written a huge series of blogs accompanied by some gorgeous artwork I had commissioned by the wonderful Justin Wasson, who also does my artwork for the Colt Coltrane series. You can head over to my blog at allisonmdixon.com and check all that out. And as always, if you read the book, I would love it if you could drop by Amazon, Goodreads, or wherever you bought it to leave me a review. It really helps to get the word out. But right now, my job is to read you a passage from this hefty tome. And I was not sure where I wanted to begin at first, but I think the best place to start for this book is probably where all journeys should start, and that is in the beginning. And, strings, sorry, shameless plug. And here we go. My last supper has a salad. I've always hated salad. It isn't that I don't appreciate a good vegetable now and then, but I can't think of anything I'd less like to eat in my final moments than a bowl of limp lettuce leaves with a few pale shreds of carrot mixed in. You can ask any condemned man what he'd like his last meal to be, and if he says salad, there probably was something wrong with him to begin with. But maybe it's what I deserve. I learned early in life to avoid most of the food that came out of the ground unless it was from a divine right farm, one of only a handful of areas left not affected by the weeds. You can take your chances on what grows outside those areas, but you would probably live to regret it. Even so, not even the safe food is safe. Cancer's the biggie, that's what took my wife. But birth defects were common not so long ago, and most folks only needed to have a few kids born looking like a cyclops before they realized maybe there was something to all those crop warnings. But the Last Supper is a whole other breed of food. Like any other standard issue death kit, it's supposed to kill you. Like the McDonald's signs of old used to say, billions have been served. I earned my meal ticket, though, and I'd be lying if I said part of me didn't want it. I didn't know a whole lot about this world before leaving the homestead, where everything was green and safe and nobody knew any different. But I've seen enough things now to realize how very doomed we are. People haven't lived anywhere in a long time. They've merely survived. Yeah, I'd say we screwed it up big time. The box my Last Supper came in even has a facsimile of Da Vinci's painting on the front. The irony is enough to kill me all on its own. Take of my body and eat. Take of my blood and drink, it says in flowing script. I never did enjoy that particular sacrament, my knowledge of it only sufficient enough to pass the yearly justification exam. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Justification. I suppose that's the reason I'm here in the first place, and why millions before me. It's a simple enough test for those who don't know better, impossible for those who do. Then there are those, like my devout and now deceased wife, who fall through the cracks. All you have to do is prove your worth to this crippled but highly regimented society, and you can continue breathing. Fail, and your final gift is a poison repast. More irony for you, I suppose. Poison repasts have been a specialty of the human race for some time, long before the weeds came and destroyed everything. The weeds were ours too, by the way, but I'll get to those. I recall John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall have everlasting life. I guess God decided we weren't much worth saving this time. He probably gave up on his creation, the way you give up on a piece of burnt toast when you can't scrape off enough of the black stuff. I just discovered a pack of oil and vinegar in the bottom of the box. It pads the blow of the salad, but only a little. At least there's dessert. A big, thick wedge of chocolate cake. I can't even remember the last time I saw chocolate. Had to be when I was barely big enough to see over the table. The God-fearing pricks would probably say they prayed extra hard to make the cocoa beans grow. But I think most of the good stuff, like chocolate and sugar, and all the things we used to think of as sinful, comes from the Divine Right labs nowadays. It's much easier to control it for the masses that way. There may be a lone plant or two in the tropics still doing nature's work, but I wouldn't know. I can only hope with the naivete of a child still wishing for the existence of the tooth fairy that the blight didn't destroy everything. It's a big planet after all, and even after everything that's happened, I can't quite become a full-blown cynic. I believe I will start my meal with the cake. If there was ever a time to buck tradition and have dessert first, it's now. The other parts of the supper include a hunk of charred meat, species indeterminate, and a small loaf of bread that feels like it's at least a few days old. There's also a small bottle of fermented grape juice the Right calls red wine, enough for a single glass. That's plenty for me, since I'd like to be able to write everything I have to say with a clear head. It might not sound like much, but all this food would be a marvel for most. Meat is a luxury because livestock requires grass and grain to feed, and what little is left has to go to feed the humans. The ones that remain roam the wild and eat what grows out there. Well, I'll get to some of them in a bit. Wouldn't want to spoil my appetite. I just took my first bite of the cake. It's greasy and thick, and it coats my tongue against another flavor that reminds me of gasoline. That's probably the poison. Suddenly, this generous slice doesn't seem like such a gift. The salad is the only thing that might taste even remotely clean in all this, so maybe I should be a little thankful it's here. I just read the short letter accompanying the meal, a standard message, I think. My wife received its twin with her own supper. To ensure a painless and dignified passing, we present you with a meal handcrafted by our expert chefs to your exact tastes, as specified on your justification exam, except maybe the salad. The Divine Right will place your earthly remains in a planter with a beautiful tree to be placed in one of our scenic memorial gardens designed with the comfort of your eternal rest in mind. The Holy Uniter would like to thank you for your service to our nation and to the world. You may be wondering why they use us for tree fertilizer. But that's not too weird when you think about it. The disposal of bodies posed a challenge in the beginning. Burial wasn't just inefficient with the number of dead involved. The roots of the serpent weeds make digging next to impossible. It's a network stretching far beneath the ground, so thick and hard it takes enormous earth movers to break through them. And if you do, well, they start growing back before you get more than a few loads of dirt out. It's almost like they're intelligent. Hey, let me rephrase that. They are intelligent. But crematoriums were a poor solution to the problem. The skies were black with the smoke. Even worse, the weeds seemed to thrive off the acidic rain the emissions produced, so the Right came up with a real bright idea. They used a caustic powder to dissolve the bodies instead. It didn't work on the weeds, but that was a good question if you were already thinking it. It worked like gangbusters on human flesh and bone, though, and there was just enough residue left to make fertilizer for a potted plant, Divine Right certified, of course, which the departed's family could then plant in a memorial forest, one of those hallowed patches of ground the weeds hadn't taken over for some reason. The Right would say it was God's providence, but it was just a simple game of evolutionary luck in our favor. I think I've rambled on long enough, though. There's a much longer tale beyond all this, and I have only a little while to tell it if the supper works the way I think it does. Things happen too fast to allow for even the smallest amounts of self-indulgence and cathartic blathering. Nonetheless, it's a tale that needs telling, even if no one else ever reads it, because maybe if I know it and hear it deep down in my heart, I'll be able to move on and do the things that need done, even if it hurts my heart more than words could ever say, even if it will never bring back the ones I've lost. At any rate, I better continue before my steak gets cold. And that concludes the opening chapter to The Last Supper. And I hope you will all want to find out what happens to John Welland and all the people he meets along the way. It has been an absolute privilege to be able to publish this book with Hobson Publishing. I cannot thank them enough for the beautiful work that they have done, both on this book on the cover and as well as the inside. You can see all this beautiful vine work on the internal pages, which just really adds a special touch, I think. But if you all have any questions about this, or you've read it and want to review it, please do so. Or if you just want to make contact with me, you can do so through my blog at AllisonMDickson.com. Also on Twitter, Miss Allie D, all one word, MSALLIED is my handle there. And you can also find me on Facebook. And thank you so much for sticking around through really this whole process of getting this book out into the world. I can't thank you all enough. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.